Eunuchs, that is men who were deprived of the opportunity to be real men in the most barbaric manner, have served at the palaces of great rulers and sultans since antiquity. In this video I will talk about the eunuchs of the palace of the Ottoman Sultan. And the Ottoman sultans took the fashion of keeping eunuchs from Byzantium, on the territory of which they created the powerful Ottoman Empire. Men could not be admitted to the harem, i.e., to the female territory of the palace, but even there a stronger male hand was needed. Eunuchs came in handy for this purpose. It is interesting that according to the laws of the Ottoman Empire, it was a mortal sin to defile men, but to keep them in service was not, and therefore it was used by sultans and other high-ranking officials. Eunuchs were bought at slave markets. They were mostly Africans, that is, dark-skinned men. However, there were white-skinned men, but as a rule, they served only the sultan, and were not allowed in the harem. Why? The reason is rather trivial. If some concubine of the sultan decided to cheat on him with a eunuch and got pregnant, the born child, or rather its skin color, would be the best evidence against the cheater. But how could this happen? Strangely enough, it could. I think the reason was the carelessness of those who examined the eunuchs entering the palace. But it is absolutely certain that no one could grow anything. You see, the most a eunuch could do was to be attracted to women, and that was only if he had been scraped as an adult. Although usually this barbaric procedure was performed on boys as early as 8 years of age. Eunuchs could not have children, and to experience other worldly pleasures, but they had the opportunity to get very rich and acquire great power. And then, some of them married or even had harems. This usually happened when the eunuchs retired if, of course, they lived to see it. The most loyal slaves were given rich estates and lots of gold by the sultans. Many old eunuchs preferred to go to Egypt. However, after the death of a eunuch, all his property passed back to the state. He had no heirs, nor could he have any. Speaking of power, there were many such power eunuchs in the Ottoman Empire. The chief eunuch was called. He was the only person who had direct access to the harem, the valet, and personally to the sultan. He ensured the transfer of information between them, and knew about everything that was happening at court and in the state. Such a knowledgeable person was an important source of information, so foreign ambassadors preferred to be friends with the Gazanfer-agi and shower him with offerings. The chief eunuch of the empire also administered the waqf, the property and land given by donations to the mosques. These provided funding for the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. The Gazanfer-agi also administered the waqfs of the sultan's wives and many courtiers. It is known that after the death of Kyosem, the wife of Ahmed I, the city of Athens, which belonged to her, passed to Vakufu, and Gazanfer-agi became its administrator. The monthly management of the funds brought the chief eunuch 109 million rubles translated into modern money. Gazanfer-agi was the center of corruption in the Ottoman Empire. Bribes, laundered money and numerous kickbacks passed through him. I will dwell a little on the power eunuchs who were shown in the TV series The Magnificent Century and the Empire of Kyosem. Gazanfer-agi served Selim I and his family, then his son Murat III and grandson Mehmed III. As a child, he was kidnapped by pirates and sold to the palace, where he quickly gained the trust of the Shahzade and his chosen lady. As an adult male, he decided to be castrated, the only way to serve in the harem. The Magnificent Century series shows this, but adds a love story attributing Gazanfer's decision to castrate himself because of his love for Nurbanu Sultan in order to stay close to her. In time, Gazanfer became the chief eunuch of the harem, managed the palace guards and the sultan's apartments, and often acted as his envoy and advisor. He amassed a considerable fortune and was one of the wealthiest men in the empire, although he was also accused of corruption. In 1603, he was executed at the demand of the Janissaries. He was buried in his own tomb, next to which a religious school was built, in accordance with his will. Hadji-agi, who served under Sultan Ahmed I, was also an influential eunuch. He was considered a patron of the arts, as he contributed to the construction of the Blue Mosque. After Sultan Ahmed's death, Hadji-agi may have influenced the transfer of power to his brother Mustafa rather than his son. The regular eunuch servants in the harem also lived well, receiving high pay from the concubines for some of their services. Women could not leave the palace without the sultan's permission, but eunuchs did. Sometimes eunuchs helped girls to get to the sultan's halvet. By the way, about habits on my YouTube channel Secrets of the East, there is an interesting video. See at the link. In addition, eunuchs were often used in various palace intrigues, and closer to the decline of the Ottoman Empire, so in general played a decisive role in the overthrow of the sultans, which was simply unthinkable. But all would be nothing if not for the suffering of the eunuchs. The effects of severe physical trauma were felt throughout their lives. Eunuchs were characterized by their great weight and the lack of vegetation on their faces and bodies, almost complete. Not many eunuchs even lived to the age of 40, as they had numerous problems with the genitourinary system. It is said that one could tell that a eunuch was around by the ammonia odor that followed them all. The cause of this odor was poorly controlled urination, which took place through a special silver tube, and it was this tube that the unfortunates always wore in their turbans.